Alright guys, we're back for part 2 of my Nathan Wilson review of my Camaro. This is a 2001. It is a 6-cylinder, my personal car as of right now. We kind of covered the basis of what we're working with and the modifications that this particular car has, and as well as the condition that it's in right now. It's a beautiful day here today in Texas, and today we are going to do our part 2 review, which is on road. Obviously a little bit more involved. The car is cold. It's been sitting all morning, obviously. Go ahead and start it up, and while it's warming up, I'll just go ahead and tell you a little bit more about what's going on inside. Obviously, it's an aftermarket head unit. This car does have Sony speakers and, all the way around, with the section of the rear. Those are Kenwood tweeters back there. Sounds really good. Obviously, being an American car, you have a lot of options as far as what you want to get for interior music and all that other good stuff. The not even the chassis, but the frame right now on it has 184,000 miles on, almost 185, and honestly, I've changed almost everything. The suspension is brand new. We talked about the engine modifications. The transmission has been rebuilt recently. This car overall is really tight chassis. It also has the LS1 steering ratio, so when we get out on the open road, you'll be able to see a little bit more of how quick that ratio is. So let's go ahead and get rolling a little bit. Idle's kind of settled a little bit below 1,000, so we might be able to take off a little bit now. This car overall, we'll talk about, where it came from. This Generation 4 Camaro is actually one of my favorites. Obviously, this isn't one of my favorite powertrains. However, this is one of my favorite cars. This 3800 V6 is actually kind of like 60s, 70s technology, where Buick actually had a 300 plus inch V8, and the GM and all their creativity actually decided to cut 2 cylinders off of that, and you got stuff like the Buick Grand National. Now, this is a L26 3800, meaning that it is a naturally aspirated unit. They used it in the 98 to 02 Camaros. They also had a slightly different version prior to that with the LT1 offerings. So it had a different, slightly angled throttle body and stuff like that, which is a little different. This motor from the factory was rated at 200 horsepower at 5,000 RPMs, maybe 5,100, and from the factory 225 foot-pounds at about 4,000 RPMs. This 4L60E, the typical GM automatic, is, if I'm honest, is actually the weakest point of the car. This transmission has really wide ratios, and it really actually lets this engine down. Obviously, it's not the most powerful engine, but even with the modifications, but it is a good engine, and it's not a terrible engine, and it would be even better had it not had this automatic, which is actually what, in my opinion, what lets this car down the most. Now, obviously, I've had the car for a long time. I've had a lot of issues, but you know what? Right now is probably a good time. I have no check engine light or nothing crazy like that right now, and the chassis is really, really tight. As you can see, this corner, maybe you can't really see that well, but I'm not putting that much steering angle at all whatsoever. We're going to go ahead and maybe go down the straight section of road first and kind of see what's going on. It's not quite warmed up yet, so I'm not going to jump on it quite just yet, but the Camaros, I'll talk about the F-body again. This Camaro obviously came with 4 different powertrains and 2 different engines. Obviously, you could get the LS1 V8, which is a very, very popular motor. It's very, very responsive to bolt-ons and stuff like that. You can get that motor with this 4L60E, which I would not recommend, or you can get it with the Tremec T56s, which I would highly recommend. This car was able to come with 2 transmissions, this one and also the Borg-Warner T5 5-speed manual transmission. Now we're going to open road a little bit, kind of see how this car kind of rides down the road. It's got decent mid-range. It's nothing crazy in the mid-range. It's just decent. You don't have to really jump on it too hard to get moving. I mean, we're moving at a good 65 miles an hour, and turn on some AC. Maybe we can hear a little bit better on the video. The car also has a new AC on it. Blows really nice and cold. It rides really well. It rides the chassis and everything. In my opinion, rides very well. It hides the speed really nicely, which is kind of a characteristic that you generally would have to buy a German car to experience. But when you do the chassis right, you get decent parts on this chassis. It rides very well, if I may just say so myself. And this comes from someone that has 2 German cars sitting in the driveway. So this once again, this engine, talking about this engine, it's not my favorite engine, but at the same time, it's not a bad engine. This engine is naturally aspirated, and honestly, I kind of like it that way. Obviously, all aftermarket, but let's talk about factory stuff for a second, because nowadays you could get a 200 horsepower turbo 4-cylinder that kind of compete with this. But at the same time, I would honestly say, I wouldn't want that. I'd prefer naturally aspirated 6-cylinder, and I'll tell you why. This engine is a good example of it. Despite the transmission, this engine makes very linear power. And when I say that, obviously the newer engines, they're able to get some decent torque out of them down low, whereas you would say this engine, makes power at $4,000 as its torque peak. And I would honestly say to those people, just drive it, and you would see that it's very livable. You don't have to jump on it or anything. The reason why I would say that is because most 4-cylinder cars that have the turbos on them nowadays, they have, we talked about this in my BMW review with the new N24 banger, despite having so much more power down low than the old straight 6 and the old Beamer, obviously the refinement of the straight 6 is so much, it's no comparison. Just like the low end torque is no comparison, the refinement of that 4-cylinder is no comparison. And this engine is similar, not in its refinement or anything, but when you bring it back down to the level of American cars, this engine is a perfect example of something that has a linear power band. The power does not fall off up top. It actually keeps pulling all the way to $6,000. And here's a nice little road right here where we're able to kind of see kind of some of the handling characteristics. Now, this car has a lot of parts on it that people generally put on the V8s, as far as polyurethane bushings, Bilstein, shocks and the struts on here. But it also has the anti-roll bars, which are kind of huge, to be quite frank. The steering response is excellent. This does not have electric power steering. It has an old school hydraulic assist. Obviously we have this van in front of us, can't do too much, but it has old school hydraulic assist, but the feel and the tightness of the steering is awesome. I think it's only second to the BMWs we have, which isn't really a fair comparison. But this steering, it has the LS1 steering rack that I replaced, and as well as a new pump, but is excellent. I challenge anyone to come check it out. I mean, the steering is really good, actually. The passing power, let's see if we can check it out. Obviously everybody's like, looks at it, wants to buy it, they're like, oh, V6, it doesn't have a lot of power, and it does. I mean, you compare it to an 8-cylinder, no, it's not gonna have the power of an 8-cylinder, but it is adequate, I promise you that, especially with the bolt-ons this one has. Let me see if I can get some room up here to kind of see what we can do, get around this Windstar and its asthmatic V6 and that thing. But continuing more on this really nice road we have up here, it's not looking like we're gonna have a time to pass, but just continuing more on this chassis. This car has a 342 rear end in it, so it's kind of a rare for the 6 to have the highest numerical rear end in it. But at the same time, it does offer some decent pep in its step. This is my personal car, and I have to say the things I don't like about it would be the V6. Just because, not because it's not linear or anything like that, just because it's just lacking in power nowadays. Nowadays when you can get a 300 plus horsepower 6-cylinder, and you have F-150s running around with EcoBoost V6s and 6.2 liter V8s with over 400 horsepower. This engine is kind of a letdown. You're kind of like driving down the road, and maybe you run into a 6.2 liter F-150, and you can't really do much. You can't really take off on them off the line. You can't pull away from them. I mean, it really kind of pisses me off, to be honest with you. The transmission, and once again, is what really lets this car down. I just got to be honest about that. I mean, if I would do it again and buy another one of these, it would have to be a 5-speed. I mean, have to be. This engine needs that, more close ratio. We'll get on a little bit. Kind of hear it a little bit. Pass with a little authority. I mean, that's almost 80 miles an hour. So second gear pull, it's not by any means dog slow. But I mean, let's be honest here. You know, you can get a lot more power. You can get it via LS1 or something like that. Now, where this car starts paying you back is in gas mileage. You start seeing that, you know, you're getting 25 miles per gallon driving around the city and 30 plus on the highway. You know, the V8 guys can say what they want, but I drive it pretty hard, and I'm doubting they'll get that mileage. So overall, good car. Would I recommend it for someone to buy? Depends. It would depend in the condition that it's in. It would depend what transmission we're talking here. Let's get a little U-turn going on here real quick. The brakes on this car are excellent. There's no denying that. The brakes and the steering are excellent. I cannot convey that enough, that they're excellent. Let me get it along one more time. First gear acceleration is very nice, but that 1-2 brings it down. It was here at the top of second gear again, almost 80 miles an hour. You know, it feels adequate until you drive something with 300 plus horsepower. But back to the chassis. The chassis is excellent, I think, in the corners. I haven't dropped it or anything, you know, excessive. I've just done, you know, a little bit of modifications. I run this car on premium fuel. You know, I live in Houston, so I can do that. I'm paying like $3.23, $3.30 a gallon for premium. Why would I not put that in my car? But once again, you know, the chassis in this car is excellent. It's wearing very big tires, all the way around 275 section width, but the turn in is excellent. Braking is excellent. This car, from all I know, uses the exact same brakes that the LS1 uses, and just let me tell you, they are very adequate. They're 2 pistons up front, and they stop this car on very immediately with very quick immediacy. So, you know, this is my personal car, and obviously I may have some, you know, kind of attachment to it. Not really. There's a SRT8 Charger right there. Let's not mess with him. But you know, those are kind of the things I've been able to notice. These really overall, I think it's an okay car. You can go canyon carving in it. Won't leave you disappointed. The transmission will leave you very disappointed. Let's not be fake about that. But, you know, overall review, I would give a 3 out of 5 stars probably. The 1 star is definitely lost solely by the transmission. The other star is lost clearly by quality. GM was not in its best days when they were making these F bodies, and it shows in the interior, most definitely. But this has been a Nathan Wilson review. Have any questions, leave them in the comments, and that's it for this review.